If you think about a family that gathers together for major events, at those moments we retell those stories that are most central to our family's history. You know, I come from a big family of 11 kids, and so anytime we get together, there are some stories that in our family we have told 400 times. And every time we tell the story, we all act like oh yeah, I totally forgot about that, when we all remember exactly what happened. But it's good for us as a family to be reminded of those central stories that have gotten us to that point as a family. And that is exactly what we do tonight. We've all heard the creation of the earth in the 7 days, but yet it's good for us to, as a family, get together and read through that, no matter how long it takes. You know, I mean, if IU were playing, we might have been a little worried, but they're not. And so we're able now to focus on what we're doing here tonight. It's the one Mass, I say, well, for the most part, where almost everybody knows it's going to be a long time, and everyone is pretty much okay with that. And I think that it's a beautiful opportunity to gather together. As I was saying earlier, the Roman Missal asks that the homily be very short tonight, for good reason, because we've heard our stories. And so I just want to direct a very brief word to those who will be joining the church, and through them also to all of us who have gathered here together. When I was in the seminary, we had to study, lots of church history. And we were looking at the history of the sacraments in one of our classes. And I was really shocked to learn how intense it was to join the Catholic Church really right out of the gate. Like if you go all the way back to the very early church and up through, the first few hundred years of the church, to go through the RCIA process would be the process by which one would join the Catholic Church would be a minimum of 3 years. And a lot of rigorous one-on-one meetings with the priest. And the priest would basically try to make you leave. It was really it was a test. And it was, do you really want this? Especially in an era where people were being sometimes killed for their faith. Okay, before you get in this, let's take some time. Let's make sure that you really understand what you're doing and understand what you're saying yes to, and that you really want this. Jesus says in the Gospels, no one sets out on a journey before sitting down and counting the cost. So the early church would say, let's make sure we have time to count the cost before jumping into this. And now the church has very much shortened through the years that process. And I think that the reasoning behind it is this. Okay, 50% of the people who join the church through the RCIA process, who come in to the church at the Easter Vigil, leave, again, the Catholic Church within 5 years. They leave within 5 years. And I think the reason behind that is because they didn't understand completely what it was that they were getting into. And they were really close to the priest, and the priest gets moved or whatever, and so they're like, well, I joined the church because of Father so-and-so. He's not here, so I'm not going to be here. We've gotten to the point where our RCIA process, the process of joining the Catholic Church, is now about a half year, 7 or 8 months or so. And I think that that's okay. I think that that's great, and I think that that's fine. But my challenge to those joining the church tonight, and to all of you who are Catholic, the challenge is, if we really want to live our faith, if we put it into practice, if we do the things that the church asks, we're going to stay. It's going to stick. And if we don't, then we will fall away. And the church asks actually 5 very simple things. That 5 simple things be non-negotiable for every Catholic. Mass every Sunday and holy day of obligation. If you're in Barbados on vacation, or you're in Alaska, or you're on a business trip, or your daughter has 17 volleyball games in Toledo, Ohio, the church says, go to church on Sunday and holy days of obligation. That's one thing. I encourage you, if you're joining the church, go to church. If we miss Mass, the church says, don't receive communion again until you've confessed that. The people who come to church every Sunday do not leave the church and holy days of obligation. The second thing that the church asks is that you take advantage of the sacrament of reconciliation once a year. And that's the bare minimum. I would encourage even more frequently taking advantage of it than that. People who go to the sacrament of reconciliation don't leave the church. The other thing that the church asks as a non-negotiable is that you in some way contribute to the upkeep and the mission of the church, and that's not just financial. There's a study done recently that said that in the Catholic Church, and the numbers are similar for other denominations as well, but 7% of the people do over 80% of the work in the church. The people who put the time in and who live by that third precept of the church and who contribute, but also with their time, their blood, their sweat, etc., and make this place work and also are active outside of here with the mission of the church, they don't leave. They're here. And the fourth one is that we keep our days of abstinence and fasting. And the fifth is actually that we receive communion at least once a year. That one is hearkening back to a day where people would really only receive communion once a year, and again, a more rigorous time when they would prepare themselves for weeks and months before coming forward to receive communion. So go to church, go to confession, contribute to what we do here and what the Catholic Church is doing in our community, and you will not be a person who leaves the church. If you slip away from those, then you might be one of that 50% who comes, joins the church, checks things out, and then checks out. Our prayer for all of you getting ready to join the church is that you are nourished by the sacraments, that you are welcomed with open arms into our community, and we give thanks to God that you have come forward this day to embrace these sacraments.